Welcome to OLC 40. This is class 7. We are on unit 1, and I am Jillian Percy. As always, these are the ways to reach me if you want to call in during the studio time, 1-800-465-7144. If you're trying to reach me when I'm not recording, 1-800-667-3703. You can fax your work at any time, 1-800-463-7852. And at Facebook and YouTube, I am capital G, capital P, ERCY space capital W AHSA. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about vocabulary today. When we talk to people, we often use a lot of nonverbal cues to help get across our meaning. We might use hand gestures to show how long something was, or make an angry face to show how upset we were by something. We might roll our eyes to show we are being sarcastic. But in writing, all we have are the words. So sometimes we have to be more specific than we would be in real life, where we have lots of ways to help get across our meaning. As well, in real life, if people don't understand something we say, they can ask us questions until our meaning is clear, but we don't have that luxury in writing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about synonyms today, okay? Understanding and using synonyms in our writing can help it be more effective. Synonyms can be more specific or help the reader to picture something more vividly. For example, the word said can easily be overused, but there are so many wonderful synonyms that can be used in place of said, and here are just a few examples. For talking quietly, we've got whispered, muttered, and murmured. For talking loudly, we have shouted, yelled, screamed, shrieked, and exclaimed. For answering someone, we have responded, replied, answered, echoed, repeated, and confirmed. For talking humorously, we have joked, quipped, clowned, and teased. Other types that are just kind of more generic: called, quoted, chanted, taunted, quizzed, interrogated, and questioned. I guarantee you there are more than I have here, but all of these words are just richer words than the word said. It's okay to use the word said sometimes, but it is one of those words that can get overused in our writing. So these are some alternatives. If you want to use an online thesaurus, here's one I checked out today, Collins Dictionary. One thing to keep in mind, though, is to be aware that sometimes synonyms don't mean exactly the same thing. So if you've never heard a particular word used at all, you may not want to use that one because it might mean something slightly different than intended. And this is something called shades of meaning. For example, if you hear the synonyms below for said, could we order them from quietest to the loudest? We've got whispered, replied, yelled, screamed, and shrieked. So which one would be the quietest? Probably whispered. And just going, what's next? Replied, yelled, screamed, shrieked. Well, replied's fairly neutral. I would say that's number 2. Yelled, screamed, and shrieked. So now this one is a personal thing. To me, yelled sounds not quite as loud as these two, but other people might feel differently. Okay. My original intention was to movies, but I forgot to make them movable. Sorry. And then screamed or shrieked. It really depends. I think shrieked is a little bit louder than screamed, but you may feel differently. There isn't just one right or wrong, but that would be an example of quiet to loud. So they don't all mean the same. Like I couldn't substitute whispered for screamed because it wouldn't convey the same meaning, even though they are both synonyms for said. So be cautious with synonyms. They can be useful, but they can kind of get you in trouble if you aren't 100% sure what they mean, okay? Here, however, are some other words that do get overused in writing a lot. If you find yourself using these same words over and over, you might try looking up the synonyms in a thesaurus, either an online one or a physical one. The words go or went, pretty, good, nice, bad, or like, these are all words we tend to overuse. I find the word nice. Oh, she was nice. Oh, it was a nice day. Oh, it was nice to do this. it's kind of overused. And because it gets overused, what happens is people don't really get a clear picture in their mind of what it means because it's been used to mean so many different things. So this is one thing to be thinking of when you're doing your writing is, are you using certain words over and over, and how can you make your writing more interesting? All right, moving on. We've been talking about grammar, and I wanted to talk a little bit about question words today because it comes up in one of our assignments. And one thing I find is I think sometimes certain words mean something slightly different to other people. So I wanted to convey that when you hear certain question words, it's really asking for a certain type of answer. Like if you say who, it means you're giving a name of a person or organization. If I said, who is there? And you said 7 o'clock, it doesn't make any sense because what you said doesn't answer my question. So it has to answer who means a person normally, sometimes an organization. What usually is a summary of the details of what is happening or was happening or will be happening. If I said, well, I want to go see this concert, well, what's going on? Well, and then I would explain what's happening, right? When is time, not just clock time, okay? Not just like 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock. It could be evening, morning. It could be talking about Tuesday, Wednesday, or the weekend. It could be talking about specific months like May or June, or seasons like fall or winter. It could be a specific year, or we could be saying like in the 20s or in the 21st century. Those are all time type words. So if you ask when, you have to give me some type of time word. Where? Where is a location? Where could be something specific, like an address, like I live at, whatever street, or it could be more general, like the river or the hill. Why? Why is a word that is asking for a reason or for an explanation for something that has happened or is going to be happening. How is, I think, the one that's kind of easily confused. How usually means what way do you need to do it in? Sometimes it means like, what are the steps or procedures? Like if I said, how do you make bannock? You would immediately say, well, first you need to do this. Or if I said, how do you set up the camp? Well, usually the first thing we do, you immediately start giving steps or sequences, okay? Some phrases, however, are very factual and they just want simple details, okay? Usually these details are stated directly in the book. Like if I ask where is, I'm looking for something specific. You should be able to find it right in the chapter. When is, who is, what is. These are all specific factual details that you should be able to find stated right in a book. Now, sometimes the answers to a question aren't going to be right in the chapter because what they're wanting is for you to give an opinion on something. And some of the phrases that might give you that that idea would be things like, do you think? Do you believe? What is your opinion of? What do you feel about? Explain how you feel about. All those ones, they are asking you about events in the book, but they want to know your opinion. Sometimes kids get mixed up with this and they'll be flipping through the book looking for an answer, but there is no answer in the book. The answer is in you. It's in your ideas and your thoughts and your feelings. All right. Some phrases like how are very clearly asking you to explain the steps or the procedures or the order to do something, okay? So things like how would you, explain the steps to, list the steps to accomplish, order the events to achieve, put in sequence the actions that are needed to, describe the steps. These are all very similar phrases. They're all really asking you the same kind of thing, okay? Some phrases are asking you to look at two different people, events, books, objects, actions, and compare them. Whenever you're comparing, you're looking for how things are alike and how they are different. So sometimes they'll say compare and contrast, or they might say compare this to this, compare World War I versus World War II. Compare Thor versus Loki. Contrast. Contrast is similar to compare, but it's usually more giving the idea of how is it different. So contrast how this person handled it, whatever it is, versus that person. So contrast how the hero handled the situation versus the villain. And at that point, if you're saying contrast, they're more looking for difference than alike. Use a Venn diagram to describe the characters and their similarities. I don't know if you've seen Venn diagrams. It's usually this kind of idea. Hang on. One circle. Oops. Well, let me move that. Hang on. One circle. And then usually there's like an overlapping circle that goes over. Hang on. And usually what you do for a Venn diagram, sorry, this one's small, is I would describe something here that's only true to it, describe something here that's only true to that side, and then where they overlap, I would describe how it relates to both. So for example, maybe here I would describe what pizza is like, right? And maybe here I would describe what, say, spaghetti is like or something, okay? I'm giving you kind of silly examples just so it's kind of obvious, but then in the middle, I would talk about where are some things they're saying? Well, they both have tomato sauce. Okay. So sometimes people forget what a Venn diagram is, but sometimes they do use that. And that's kind of what they're looking at. Or they might say, how are these events, people, whatever it is, similar or different? Again, these are all really asking the exact same type of question for the most part, or very similar questions. Okay. So up to date, so far we have finished all the work in lessons 1 to 4, and you should be finished all assignments up to number 16. We have also read up to chapter 3 in Jimmy Come Home. If you have not completed any of these tasks, please stop the recording and work on those assignments before you go any further in this recording. Today's lesson is kind of reflecting on some things, so you don't want to go any farther, okay? All right, lesson 5 only has 2 assignments. Most of the other lessons had a lot more. This one only has 2. And then unit 1 is completely done. So lesson 5, the whole theme is writing to persuade, inform, or entertain. The entire unit is worth 18 marks. The first assignment is called Questions and Answers, and it is worth 8 marks. And it says, now that your news report is done, it is time to see what Jimmy is up to in your novel. This time, though, the only questions you're going to have to answer are ones that you write. Your task is to read the next 2 chapters, chapter 2 and chapter 3, and ask and answer questions based on the novel. So I'm sorry, I had stated we were supposed to already read chapter 2 and chapter 3. You do need to do them before you try and do assignment 17, or you won't be able to do this, okay? Complete the question starters and then answer the questions using details, examples, and page numbers where possible from the text. And they give you an example. Question 1, where did Peter want to take Jimmy in the fall? Answer was Peter wanted to take Jimmy moose hunting, and that answer can be found on page 13. Here are some other questions. Question 3 is, oh wait, where's question 2? Uh-oh, hang on. Question 2 has disappeared. It will be in your unit. I don't know where it went to on mine. I think I probably talk about it more in the next one. Hang on a second. Question 3, if you were in Jimmy's shoes, what? And then you would explain. Question 4, do you think that Teresa, and you need to finish the question. Question 5, what? And you need to finish the question. Now, when I first looked at this, I was really confused because I somehow missed reading the part where it talks about that you have to invent your own questions. But that is the crucial thing. So in this case, you're kind of like pretending to be the teacher. All right. That's why we talked about question words and what they mean, because it's kind of important for this assignment. I kind of found it confusing because they aren't really asking us anything. So how can we answer? If you just say what, I can't really answer if I don't know, what about what. This is one of the assignments. It kind of depends. Some people might find this assignment really hard, or to you, it might seem very easy. So I wanted to tackle discussing how to write a question about a chapter or, any one event in the chapter. So question 2 begins, how do you think? And by itself, you can't answer that. There's just not enough information. Those ... means they want you to finish that question. And you have to write it out. You can't just think it. You have to write it so I know what question you're trying to answer, okay? So the word think, we talked about this already, but the word think is suggesting that they want you to ask a question where the reader has to give an opinion or make a prediction about how something is going to affect something else. You could be thinking about somebody's choices or their decisions. For example, how do you think that this choice to do something, you got to be specific, don't just write do something, is going to change? And then you would write something specific. You cannot write this exactly as I've written it. That is not a specific enough question. It's too vague, okay? Or you might ask something about somebody's actions or behavior, like, how do you think this person's actions is going to affect an upcoming event or a relationship? Maybe they want you to think about how to solve a problem, possible ways, brainstorm. How do you think this person could get out of this situation? And again, you would have to be specific about what the situation is. Are they going to jail? Are they about to get married? Are they supposed to have done something they haven't? You have to tell me what situation. You can't just write situation, okay? I want to make that really clear. That won't make any sense. Okay, hang on. So how to create a question. Let me give you an example from a popular movie. I don't know if anyone else saw Barbie. I hope you did. So you can see what I mean. So an example from the Barbie movie. How do you think Ken might try to impress Barbie? How do you think Barbie could let Ken know she just wants to be friends? How do you think Barbie's life might change now that she has become real? Now, none of those things are going to be answered just in the movie, or for us, just in the text. We're going to have to kind of think about it and brainstorm and use ideas from your own life. So think about, what are some places in chapter 2 or chapter 3 of Jimmy Comes Home where the reader might be able to use their imagination to suggest possibilities or make predictions or give an opinion about upcoming character actions or feelings or choices. Question 3. Question 3 asks, if you were in Jimmy's shoes. You can't just leave it at that. You have to mention a specific event happening in chapter 2 or chapter 3. Okay? There's a lot of ground covered in there. You have to talk about something specific. You got to narrow it down. So first, this is asking you to imagine that you are Jimmy at a certain important time. Maybe when he's got to make a big decision, or maybe when he's made a big mistake. Maybe when someone's treating him badly, or maybe when something bad has already happened. Don't forget, you're going to have to answer the question and label what page the answer is found on. For this case, you would tell me where the event is happening. Okay. So if the event happened on page 17 that you want my opinion on, you're going to have to say, well, on 17. And then if you use any clues from that event, find where the clues are. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Example 3, so question 3 example. This is not based on the book because I don't want to give you all the answers. But for example, if you were in the detective's shoes, what would you do now that another murder has occurred? If you were in the girlfriend's shoes, what would you do after you found another girl's outfit at your boyfriend's house? If you were in the crook's shoes, what would you do after your partner ran away and left you in the hands of the cops? So these are just some examples. Okay, so if you haven't read chapter 2 or 3, you've got to do that first, or it's going to be impossible to do this. You have to read that to have an idea. Where are some spots where there's room for imagination, there's room for opinions, okay? Not every spot works that way. Question number 4, do you think that Teresa, and again, you're going to have to fill in what we want an opinion about. Think is the clue that they want you to give an opinion. maybe an opinion on what Teresa should do or will do, maybe an opinion on what Teresa might be feeling towards somebody else, maybe an opinion on what Teresa might be feeling towards herself, or maybe an opinion on what Teresa might think about a certain situation or a certain person. Okay. You have to decide, you have to write it, you have to answer it, and you have to tell me what page number your answer is based on. Okay. So if the event happened on page 14, great, tell me that. And if there's any clues that you use, tell me where those on what pages those are on too. Okay. Question number 4 are examples. It says, do you think, I believe, do you think that the hero will stay with this girl? Do you think the mom will change how she acts towards her son? Do you think that the friend is going to change now that something terrible has happened? Do you think that the soldier is going to return to the war? Do you think that the woman is going to leave her husband? Now, these aren't based on Jimmy Comes Home. They're just trying to give you an idea of how specific you're going to have to be. You can't be vague. It's got to be very specific. I should be able to read it and go, oh, yeah, I know where that happens. You're still going to tell me the page number so I can just check it out, but I should be able to find that specific example right in the book, okay? Remember that when you are giving an answer to these, you will need to use some clues, people's words or actions to support your opinion. So sometimes people aren't sure what it means when you say you need to support your opinion from the text. So let's say a question is asking whether somebody loves somebody or not, right? For a movie, does Thor love the Black Widow? Okay, I can't just say yeah or no. I have to give some examples right from the book or from the movie to explain why I think that. Okay, it can't be 100% out of my own opinion. It has to be based on things the characters have said or done that gives me that idea. Okay. So, for example, now again, these are made up. These are not actual examples. So, if somebody said, well, do you think so-and-so loves somebody? Well, on page 15, he gives her flowers to apologize for being mean, which I think is one sign he loves her. On page 30, he chose to stay and help her rather than go out drinking, which shows me that he loves her. But maybe you think the opposite. That's fine too. No, I don't think he loves her, because on page 20, when she says she loves him, he doesn't say anything back to her. As well, on page 25, he starts flirting with another girl the moment she walks away, which I don't think he would do if he really loved her. Now, I want to point out that the same character may actually have done all these things, right? But you may think some are more important than other. The person next to you may disagree. They may think some of those actions point to something different. That's the part where your opinion comes in. It can't just be a wild guess, though. It can't be based on nothing. It has to be based on actions, words, or something that's going on in the actual book that makes you feel what the answer is. Question number 5. Question number 5, I thought, was the most general question. What? That's way too open-ended. But anyways, it gives you a lot of choices to ask about. What's a pretty factual question, though? It suggests that it's looking for very specific information or details about an event in the book. For example, what happened when something occurred, or what happened after, or what happened before? What did this person want this other person to do about a certain situation? What was going on at the time at a certain place? What was the plan to solve a certain problem, right? What is generally a question that makes you think you're looking for details? Again, please be very specific, and in your answer, you have to tell me the page that you found that question on. Okay. This is our last assignment for this particular term. Okay. This is assignment 18. This is another journal entry. And the journal entry is about your progress. This journal entry is worth 10 marks. Well done. You have made it to the end of Unit 1 of your course. Your final assignment for this unit will be to write a journal entry about the progress you have made so far. Are there skills you are becoming more comfortable with? Have you started to enjoy certain literary activities that you did not like before? As you write, consider if you are using the 7 grandfather teachings so far in this course. Are you having any struggles, and which, if any of the 7 teachings, are you relying on most? Feel free to share any other thoughts you might have. Your piece here will be a paragraph containing at least 6 sentences. I want to point out when they say at least, that's the smallest it could be. I would not hand in only 6 sentences when it's saying it wants 10 marks, unless these are 6 extremely detailed sentences. I would aim for closer to 10, okay? Now, you might not be sure, what do they mean by certain literary activities? Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples. There are more. These are just some possible examples. Okay, some possible literary skills you might be becoming more comfortable with: brainstorming ideas, reading the novel, writing the journal entries, filling in your reading log, writing a rough draft, revising your work, listening to these podcasts, handing in your work. Some people find that part really stressful. So whatever activity that has been involved with this course that involves literacy, which is just reading and writing and stuff like that, anything is fine. Okay. What are some things that you're becoming more comfortable at, or that you think you're becoming better at? Okay. Okay. It also wanted you to tie in the 7 grandfather teachings. And I wanted to point out before I talk about them again that I'm aware that not everybody is traditional, okay? But these values are cross-cultural. They show up in many religions, philosophies, and even laws around the world. So the 7 grandfather teachings are love, respect, bravery, truth, honesty, humility, and wisdom. So for example, truth. That's actually like a huge part of our laws. Companies can be prosecuted or charged if they're lying to the consumers about something. People lying in court is called perjury, and again, they can be charged with an offense. People lying about accidents or money can be called fraud, and again, they can be charged under the law. So it's important to know this isn't only a part of the 7 grandfather teachings. These are ethics or virtues or values that are valued really around the world, okay? Okay, so I wanted to kind of go back for a more in-depth review of these teachings. As we're reading through these, think about how you've used some of these values to get through the work in the course. And I want to point out, it may not have been a conscious choice. Like looking at the values, maybe you didn't realize you were being brave. You didn't think, I've got to be brave now. But it still may have taken a lot of bravery to dive back in and try and do this course if you've been away from school for a long time. So it may not have been a virtue that you were aware you were practicing, but as we're going back through these values, think now about how some of these values might apply to doing this course. All right, give me a second. Let me just kind of grab. Sorry, when you guys are seeing that black bar that comes up, it's the Zoom bar that occasionally comes up and is kind of gets in the way. I apologize. I can't really do anything about it. It's got to be there at some point. All right, the 7 grandfather teachings have always been a part of the Native American culture, Native Canadian culture too. Their roots date back to the beginning of time. Their teachings impact our surroundings, along with providing guidance towards our actions to one another. According to the story, long ago, a messenger sent to see how the Nishnabek were living discovered that the Nishnabek were living their life in a negative way, which impacted their thoughts, decisions, and actions. Some had hate for others, displayed disrespectful actions, were afraid, told lies, and cheated. Others revealed pride or were full of shame. During his journey, the messenger came across a child. This child was chosen to be taught by the 7 grandfathers to live a good life. He was taught the lessons of love, respect, bravery, truth, honesty, humility, and wisdom. Before departing from the 7 grandfathers, they told him, each of these teachings must be used with the rest. You cannot have wisdom without love, respect, bravery, honesty, humility, and truth. You cannot be honest if you're only using one of the other teachings. To leave out one teaching would be embracing the opposite of what the teaching means. The 7 grandfathers each instructed the child with a principle. It was then up to the child to forget them or to put them to use. And I know this is slightly different than the story we heard before, but we did talk about that at the time, that different cultures have a slightly different version of each story, okay? Each of us represents the child. We must faithfully apply the teachings of our 7 grandfathers to our own lives. We must place our trust in the Creator. We must also never forget to be sincere in our actions, our character, and our words. So, love. Knowing love is to know peace. Our love must be unconditional. When people are weak, that is when they need love the most. Love is a strong affection for another. This can form between friends and family. Love is an attachment based upon devotion, admiration, tenderness, and kindness for all things around you. For one to love and accept themselves is to live at peace with the Creator and in harmony with all creation. Love knows no bounds. We must accept it sincerely and give it freely. So I know you might think, well, love, how could I possibly have been using love? But you know what? You may well have shown love, right? Maybe you were kind to other classmates. Maybe you were kind to the teacher who was helping you. Maybe you were kind to the family when they were interrupting you while you were doing work. There's all sorts of ways you could have shown love while doing your assignments at this course. Respect. A way to honor creation is by showing respect. There should be no part of creation that could be excluded from the honor that we are to give. We demonstrate respect by realizing the value of all people and things, and by showing courteous consideration and appreciation. We must give respect if we wish to be respected. We honor the traditional roles that we fill and the teaching that we have been given. We honor our family and others, as well as ourselves. We are not to bring harm to anyone or anything. Respect is not just an action, but a heart-grown feeling. So, respect. How could you have shown respect during this course? You may have shown respect talking to some of the WASA administrative personnel. Maybe you've shown respect talking to me or talking to the people at the Learning Center. Maybe you've shown respect to other people in your household because you're trying to complete this in order to be able to do the job you need to do. Respect is absolutely a part of doing this course. Bravery. Facing a problem with integrity is a true demonstration of bravery. We do what is right, even when the consequences may be unpleasant. We face life with the courage to use our personal strengths to face difficulties, stand tall through adversity, and make positive choices. We must stand up for our convictions and have courage in our thinking and speaking. All of these actions together will lead to a ceaseless bravery. Now, again, some people think of bravery in terms of just like a physical thing, like being brave during a fight, right? Or being brave when you have maybe a difficult illness or you're in pain. But there are a lot of intellectual challenges to what we're doing. It can be hard to go back to school when you've been out for a while. It can be hard to be doing this course where we're asking you to talk about your feelings or tell about your life. Sometimes if school was not really very pleasant for you or you found it hard, it can take a lot of bravery just to sit down and do the assignments because you may feel kind of nervous about what people are going to say or think about your writing. So it absolutely takes bravery to do this course. Truth. Truth is having the knowledge of our cultural teachings. It gives us the ability to act without regret. We must understand, speak, and feel the truth, while also honoring its power. Truth should not lead us to deceptions. We know who we are in our heart. By knowing that, we also know the truth. Our emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual gifts will guide each one of us in our journey. So if you think back to lesson one, a lot of lesson one was looking at yourself, right? Which is what they talk about here. We know who we are in our heart. And when we know that, that's part of knowing the truth. So looking at your temperament, looking at what kind of person you were, whether you were introverted or extroverted, whether you are, base decisions on feelings or senses, whether you like to make judgments and have things closed, whether you like to keep things open. Um, Several assignments have involved talking about yourself or talking about your life. All of those things involve looking at the truth, facing the truth, and sharing the truth. Honesty. Facing a situation is to be brave, but having the courage to not only do the right thing, but also saying it is called honesty. We must allow truth to be our guide. We must first be honest with ourselves. This will allow us to be honest with others. We must give full value to both the efforts of our own and others. When we walk through life with integrity, it is then that we know honesty. Be truthful and trustworthy. We must also remember to accept and act on truths through straightforward and appropriate communication. Okay, so I really like this one because I think it's a very important one. It's impossible for us to be honest with other people when we're not honest with ourselves. And that honesty can be about knowing what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. It can be about facing honestly sometimes the mistakes we've made or the problems that we've had. And the honesty that talks about like giving full value to our efforts, but also to other efforts, to other people's efforts, and walking with integrity. Being honest is part of walking with integrity, right? Integrity is about wholeness, about being who you're called to be. Okay. It's also talking about being willing to basically accept feedback, acting on truths through straightforward and appropriate communication. So being willing to listen to people being honest with you, even if you don't agree with them, and being willing to be honest with other people, even if they may not agree with you. They may still find value in your honesty, even if they don't necessarily agree with you 100%. Humility. Humility is to know that we are a part of creation. We must always consider ourselves equal to one another. We should never think of ourselves as being better or being worse than anyone else. Humility comes in many forms. This includes compassion, calmness, meekness, gentleness, and patience. We must reflect on how we want to present ourselves to those around us. We must be aware of the balance and equality with all of life, including humans, plants, and animals. Okay, well, how would humility relate to this course? Well, first of all, you don't want to think of yourself as worse than anyone else. Sometimes people get discouraged in school or they've made mistakes and they're in a place they're not happy about sometimes. It can be easy to think bad thoughts about yourself and to kind of have a lot of negative self-talk. And it can be really a challenge to overcome that and do something like this course. So that's one way that humility can come into play. The other way it can come into play is, when you're tackling this course, there are times when you're going to be, needing to spend an hour or two, maybe away from family, maybe away from friends, doing the course. Maybe you're going to the learning center. Maybe you're just taking an hour or two to spend some time in your room and do the work. That may be hard on your family, maybe hard on your friends. Humility is acknowledging, hey, I'm trying to do this new thing for myself, but I'm aware it could have an effect on you. And being willing to be humble about that, to talk to people about all of that. So let me just see. I think we're at the end of this particular item. Oh, wait here. Wisdom. How could I forget? This is the most important one of all, I think. The mixture of all these teachings combined with the experiences of life is what we refer to as wisdom. It is given to us by the Creator to be used for good. Wisdom carries other meanings, which also include intelligence or knowledge. When we cherish our knowledge or intelligence, we are also cherishing our wisdom. We must use sound judgment, along with the ability to separate inner qualities and relationships. We must use a good sense and course of action to form a positive attitude. We must remember to listen and use the wisdom that has been provided by our elders, tribal leadership, and our spiritual leaders. We must also always remember that wisdom comes in all shapes, sizes, forms, and ages. So, wisdom is more than just being smart. I feel like wisdom is being able to look at a situation, look at the different options, and to make a good choice looking at those options because you've kind of been in those situations before, or you can make a prediction about how something is going to work. I feel like a big part of this course is being able to use your wisdom to do these assignments, because a lot of them require you to reflect on your experiences, and also being willing to examine the whole concept of wisdom. The book we're reading about, Jimmy Comes Home, I think that a big part of the book is Jimmy developing wisdom, developing the ability to make good decisions and make good choices for his life. And you really see that in how he looks up to his gukum, looks up to his probation officer, looks up to the teacher trying to help him at school. He's not just looking for wisdom from himself, he's beginning to value the wisdom in others, which before he really didn't value, right? All right, going back to our assignment. The reason we were talking about this is because as you write, consider if you're using the 7 grandfather teachings so far in this course. Are you having any struggles, and which, if any, are you relying on the most? So you could talk about which one you think you're relying on the most. You could also talk about which one you think you're having any struggles with, right? That's just fine too. Feel free to share any other thoughts you might have about the course, okay? About doing this process, about what it's taken. Again, we talked about having at least 6 sentences for 10 marks. Okay. All right, so when you have finished handing that in, you'll be finished Unit 1. Looking ahead, next week, we are going to start working on Unit 2, okay? And the very first assignment is a brochure. And I was a little bit worried about this because I'm not sure if everyone's seen brochures. I feel like these are something that were more common before the internet came around. They're still around, but I was worried. So I want to show you a quick picture of a brochure. So it's often just a simple page, but it's been folded into 3 parts. And the picture there shows one, the front and the back, because usually what happens is they fold it up and then each little folded section becomes a new spot to put information. It becomes like 6 little mini pages. And the front cover, you can kind of see right here is a fancy picture that kind of invites people to want to read it. The back is often information about how to get in touch. And then the inside is kind of telling you all the information about whatever's going on. Okay. Brochures can be on any topic. You can literally do anything. But how I've seen them used most oftenly. Hang on a second. They can be used by businesses to sell their services. I have also seen them used by hospitals or doctor's office to help explain medical information or procedures. If you ever go to like a travel center, when you cross a border and you end up in a little travelers information center, they often have little brochures. If you go to the subway gas station at Ignace, there's a little wooden stand that has a whole bunch of brochures about different things to do in like Thunder Bay and stuff. In your own community, one place to take a look for them might be at the nursing station. And I really encourage you to take a look at some of these because we are going to have to write one next week. And if you've never seen one, it's going to be a pretty big challenge to suddenly start writing about these. Okay. I think what else, where we're at. Hang on, I'm going to do a quick review just to make sure we're okay. Okay, we've talked about vocabulary, we've talked about our writing, we've talked about the question words. Okay. Again, really important to make sure you look at chapter 2 and 3 before you do Jimmy Comes Home. Don't go on to chapter 4 until I tell you to, okay? Because sometimes we have to do work before we read a chapter. And this is lesson 5, 18 marks. our questions and answers, where you have to make up your questions and make up your answers, and you have to tell me the page. And then, oh, wait, there's a lot of information on that. I apologize. And then our last assignment, which is the journal entry. Okay. I really appreciate everybody coming here. We're ending a little bit early today because we've gone through the unit and I don't really have any more assignments. I don't want to go on to the next unit. I might do a quick little example. Hang on. Example of, where was I? If I was going to answer this. Okay. So let me pull it up. Well, yep. Okay. So if I was going to do this kind of journal, here's an example. For me, I'm going to answer this differently because I'm not you, right? I have become, right, I'm going to use a smaller, it's too big. I have become, there we go, more comfortable doing these presentations. At first, using the tech equipment was challenging, and I made a lot of mistakes. I am enjoying this part more now, and I hope to get even better at creating these presentations. Okay, as you write, consider if you're using the 7 grandfather teachings so far in this course. I feel like bravery has been a huge part of this course for me. Trusting that I can learn how to use unfamiliar technology, trusting that I will be able to learn how to do a new job. All of these have required bravery for me. Okay. I can tell that there's some problems with this. I probably would need to go back and fix that, but I don't want to tackle it now because then it'll just get in the way of me doing a rough draft. Okay. I find when I'm doing rough drafts, kind of speeding ahead is the best way. Are there any struggles? I am finding it a struggle not to have students right in front of me to be able to tell if they are understanding the coursework. I didn't realize how much I relied on seeing student faces to know if they understood what I was teaching. Okay. So I've written this from my point of view, partly so that you can't copy it, and partly just because, I'm asking you to be honest about what's hard. So I'm going to be honest with you so you can, you got to lead by example, right? So I'm going to be brave and share what I found hard, and hopefully that'll make it easier for you guys to be brave and share what you've got hard. Before I ever go on, I'm going to read. I want to make sure I've got at least 6 sentences. I'm going to grab my little highlighter just to really quickly make sure. And again, if you don't have 6 periods, you don't have 6 sentences, right? You don't want to count lines. Sometimes kids want to go 1, 2, 3. No, we're not talking about lines. We're talking about sentences. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's not bad. I might want to do one more sentence to kind of wrap up my whole paragraph. The other thing is, just because I put a period there, it doesn't necessarily mean I wrote the sentence correctly. I'm going to want to go back and make sure each sentence has a subject and a verb. I want to make sure it doesn't sound like information is missing, like we talked about, um, sentence fragments. And I'm going to go back and check for spelling errors, grammatical errors, all those kind of things. I wouldn't want to just hand it in without having done all that, but I did want to walk you through the process. Okay. There's no school tomorrow. Sorry, no presentations tomorrow. You're welcome to go to your school and welcome to do some of the assignments. I will talk to you again on Monday. If anybody wants to reach me tomorrow, I will be in the office all day because I don't have any presentations. So that would be a great time to hand me in some assignments or to call me if you are confused by some of the assignments. Thank you so much for coming and listening today. And I hope you're enjoying this course as much as I am. I will talk to you guys again on Monday. Thank you so much.